and welcome to Jim and Ben's Movie Adventures. My name is Ben, and with me as always is...
Agent XXX.
Xander Cage.
Cage. Except I'm not. My name is actually Jim, and we are here to talk about XXX with Vin Diesel from 2002.
Wow. Sorry, that's all I got, man. Like, wow. Like, this movie... Look, no, before I don't want to get into this too much. Hit me with a synopsis, and then I'll hit you with the facts.
All right, will do. So, let's see. I've got it queued up here. I'm ready. I promise. Just vamp. No, I got it. Okay.
It's not 6 a.m. We're cool.
Yeah. All right. So here we go. In XXX from 2002, Xander Cage, an extreme sports rebel, is recruited by the NSA to infiltrate a dangerous anarchist group called Anarchy 99 in Prague. Led by Yorgi, the group plans to unleash a biochemical weapon called Silent Night, and initially reluctant, Xander uses his unconventional skills to gain Yorgi's trust and uncover the plot. With the help of Yelena, Yorgi's reluctant partner, Xander thwarts the launch of the weapon and saves the city. In the end, he embraces his new role as both spy and extreme sports action man and secures a relationship with Yelena.
Wow. I mean, I appreciate the shortness of it because that is the length of the plot in this film. I also really appreciate you not calling him an athlete. He is a rebel because he doesn't ever seem to compete. He just uses his extreme sports skills for either crime or good. And wow. Okay. Anyway, it's released 2002, directed by Rob Cohen of Stealth, Mummy, Tomb of the Dragon Emperor, and Fast and the Furious. Written by Richard Wilkes. He has writing credits on all the X films. Starring Vin Diesel, Asia Argento, and Martin Chokash. We Googled that beforehand.
Nice work.
My interesting fact of the pod, Martin Chokash. What do you think his most interesting acting credit is?
Most interesting?
Yeah, it is to me.
Okay, Xena.
No, he was the voice of Poggle the Lesser in Attack of the Clones.
Really?
Yeah, it's like his only voice acting credit. It's wild.
There you go. I thought Xena was a pretty good pull.
Look, Xena's a great pull. But yes, he wasn't Xena. Also, not listed on Wikipedia, which is wild, Samuel L. Jackson.
Yeah.
Considering he's the name in this movie.
True.
Budget of $88 million, box office of $277 million. This movie, I'm going to throw it out there. I didn't necessarily enjoy 70% of this movie. And mainly because there's like a weird pacing issue in this film. Like it doesn't know what to do when Xander's not doing something extreme. It really doesn't. Like all this movie is linking material until he grinds down a staircase on a tray. He snowboards out of a helicopter. He jumps off a bridge. He attacks a submarine. Like it's like it's trying to be all the best parts of James Bond without the things that link James Bond together. But yeah, the 30% I enjoyed. I really enjoyed. Like it's awesome to look at and very cool. But yeah, like this movie, how does this hold up for you, Jim?
It's interesting because, really recently we talked about Too Fast, Too Furious, and I have a very similar journey with this movie in the sense that even though I'm an action movie fanatic, an action movie junkie, if you like, I weirdly didn't like this movie when it came out. And
I understand.
And even though I was fairly young when it came out and I was squarely in the target demographic for the film, absolutely hands down, I didn't like it when it came out. And I think one thing that might kind of summarize this idea is I remember being at school because we were in high school when this came out. We'd just hit, secondary school. Must have been, 12, 13. Like I said, squarely in the target demographic for this movie. And I remember going to school and I remember a friend of ours, because we went to school together, Dean. He showed up to school one day and he said, "I've seen this amazing movie. This movie is incredible, Jim. Like, this movie is it's the best thing I've ever seen." And what he proceeded to describe for me was the opening scene where there is a senator whose first name is Dick, short for Richard, and Xander Cage, as played by Vin Diesel, does a monologue to camera while stealing this senator's car because the senator is against extreme sports and video games. And Xander does this big sort of takedown of the man, and of course the big joke, if you like, is that his name is Dick for Richard, which obviously also is a rude word. Okay, and my friend thought that this was the height of comedy, right? Like that. Like, and I don't want to sound just like
He
movie
was
snob.
13 or 14. Like,
Exactly. Like, I don't want to sound like movie snob here or down on the movie. It's just that it wasn't funny to me. Like, and that should have kind of been my warning sign that wherever I was as a human, I was not, quite
what
there
the.
for Triple X. But I went to see it anyway. And there was absolutely stuff that to this day I like about the movie, but it was sort of, I guess, that monologue and that opening really does show you everything that the movie aspires to be. So if you're not down for that, then you're not going to have a great time, start to finish. And it just wasn't. It just wasn't really my kind of humor at the time. That said, like Too Fast, Too Furious, fast forward, 25 years to now. And I actually enjoy this film a lot more now. I think that, it's fun. I have some nostalgia for that like early 2000s aesthetic where everything's a little bit, actually, no, everything's very kind of MTV music video amped up to 11. I
There's a
real
layer of deliberate cringe in this film. And I say deliberate on
Absolutely.
purpose. Like, they meant to do it. Even back then, it was meant to feel that way.
Yes. And I think that's the other thing where it's like, this is absolutely confident in what it is. And I perhaps didn't realize that as a teenager. I just saw it and I went, "Oh, this is cringe. I don't like it." They don't know what they're doing. And of course, my take is this is cringe. They absolutely knew what they were doing. This is totally deliberate and
Yeah.
they're really having fun with it. And I think once I realized that, I enjoy the movie a lot more now because it's very different when a filmmaker makes something in that style and it doesn't feel deliberate or it feels like they were trying to do something more grounded. But they're not at all trying grounded in Triple X. This is a movie that's just it. If you said this movie's stupid, but you're smiling while you say it, they're okay with that as
Yeah.
filmmakers because that's what they were trying to do.
I mean, if you look at Rob Cohen's directing resume, he's got Stealth, he's got The Mummy, Tomb of the Dragon Warrior, he's got Fast and the Furious, he's got The Skulls, he's got he makes this movie. Like, he makes this over the top, crazy movie. He's got some grounded stuff in there as well, but it's just like, yeah, you're right. It's very deliberate. Like, they knew exactly what they were doing. Unfortunately, I don't think I've had the 25 years to marinate on this and to kind of like get that nostalgia feel to it. Because the cringe in this especially like the love story stuff,
Well, yeah,
it really kind of, and not that there's love story stuff, it just, none of it was earned. None of it was kind of like he has two superpowers in this film: the ability to pull off any action stunt at any time successfully, and to pull any girl he wants. Like, it's like James Bond to the extreme in that circumstance, and I think that's obviously very deliberate as well. They're like, it's not a parody, but it's very much like a, hey, if James Bond can do it, Xander Cage can do it. Like,
it's really that idea that you really get the feeling that what they were trying to say at the time was this is Bond for a new generation.
yeah,
They were very much sort of saying, okay, Bond's been around since the 60s. The world's changed, the world's progressed. How would you do Bond now?
this
What's
ain't your
cool?
grandpa's Bond.
Exactly. That's really what they're trying to do there. So, but I would agree with you that, look, the love story stuff is absolutely the weakest part of the film, whether or not that if as you say earlier, the cringe is deliberate. Whether or not it's deliberate or not, the love story is the weakest part of the film.
Yeah.
So it's just one of those tricky things where I think, obviously Vin Diesel, good actor, and his love interest, whose name is Asia, I believe.
Asia, yeah.
Asia Argento, I think.
Yep.
So, look, she performs well as well, but it's one of those tricky things where two people are supposed to fall in love and they don't have very much sort of dialogue to develop that relationship, and they just meet each other. The chemistry between the performers becomes all important, and in this case, there doesn't seem to be
No.
that instant kind of chemistry, and obviously that's an indefinable thing. In some ways it's just some on-screen couples have it and some don't, but it doesn't appear to be there. And with no dialogue, that is well written and thought out, and giving some time and some air to that story, it's not going to work particularly well. I would probably say that most fans of the film wouldn't care about that, because they'd be like, that's not what we're here for.
You wait. Like, if someone really loved that film and they didn't like the love story, you wait a year and a half. They just won't remember the love story. They'll just remember the bits they love, like everybody, right?
Yeah.
I want to talk about the first third of this movie.
Oh, you sound like me now. You're starting about... Are you on about structure?
A little bit,
yeah. Okay.
I mean, my brain doesn't necessarily think about it as a structure. My brain thinks about it as something here doesn't work.
Yes. Okay. Well, look, I was going to talk about the first third for structure, so I'm glad that you got us there.
So maybe I'll lead you into it. So this film, for all intents and purposes, let's talk about superhero terminology. It's trying to be an origin story. And the origin story, the first third of this film, really is clunky. Really clunky, and it doesn't really kind of lead into what I would call an effective call to action for the rest of the film. So, for example, he does the thing with the senator, right? And he
with the Corvette, yep,
with the Corvette, and like we see 2002 GoPros, and by GoPros I mean big metal canisters that are built to survive explosions, apparently. And he does the thing, and then we cut to the CIA. And they're like,
yeah. Well, we actually start with the mission of the James Bond-esque character.
Guy failing. So yeah, there's a James Bond stand-in who fails because he's not extreme. And someone gets
exactly
sniped.
What happens?
I know. And someone snipes him using a pistol. The pistol scope situation in this film, outside of all of this, sorry, I just got distracted. I'm not a gun person. I'm not a marksman. I think anyone who is would turn in their graves. But anyway, sorry. So he's not extreme enough. We cut to Xander, does the Corvette, and then we cut to the CIA, and they're like, hey, man, we lost our guy. What do we do? What do we do? What do we do? And then someone who nobody seems to really respect in Samuel walks in and goes, I've got this thing where we're going to revamp this program. And then we cut to basically them kidnapping people, including Xander Cage, and they test them. Now, the first test I had seen, either in a clip or TikTok or something like that, but when he kind of picks up on the ruse of the diner because of the heels, because he's a man of the people and he knows they wouldn't wear heels. And then we escalate straight to drug lords that are real, trying to kill everyone. And then after that, they convince him to go on this thing. His character would never go. Like, his character wouldn't do it. The character we've been led to understand for the first third of this film, anti-government, anti-establishment, anti-authority. There's no way that character agrees under these motivations. Like,
well,
this
the motivations will send you to prison if you don't go. So,
but this guy would just film his escape from prison. Like, there's this, I don't know, man. Like, it feels like it's really just trying to get to, obviously, the back 2/3 of this film. But I think it could have got there faster, a lot faster.
Well, that is where I guess what you're talking about in terms of the call to action is what I was going to talk about a little bit, but from a slightly different tack, which is about, structure of the film. and that first third is odd. It's odd because with a film like this, if you call it an origin story, which I think is a good way to put it, you would often have a training movie, and then the next one would be the real mission, or the real mission would be the finale after most of the movie was training. And this movie kind of does this interesting thing where the first 30 minutes of the film is training, and then after that, we kind of divorce completely from that and move to what we call the A plot of the film, where we have our terrorists and we're trying to stop them and we're doing the mission. 30 minutes is actually a very long time to basically be away from the A plot of the film while we're sort of doing this testing stuff. I don't mind it because some of the best action is in that first 30 minutes.
Yeah.
So, and as an action film fan, I have no real problem there. It is a little bit of a shame in some ways that that action is not connected in a real way to the main meat of the film. So, and also it's always a bit odd when some low stakes, hey, let's test this agent and see what's going on, and see if they'll be good for this mission. This is all happening while there is a very real, very urgent problem in another corner of the world. Like, it's sort of like everyone just pauses and waits for them to get Xander up to speed before they get going. So it is a bit odd. At the same time, I see why they did it. They're trying to introduce the character of Xander, and they obviously, for whatever reason, felt they couldn't or didn't want to do that solely on the mission. So instead, we're sort of gifted this opening that's a bit odd. There are three action, pieces though in this opening that I actually think are the strongest action pieces in the whole film. So I want to talk about them for a second.
So let me go. Ready? There's the Corvette off the bridge.
Yep.
There's the motorbike during the drug raid.
Yes.
The third.
It's in between those two. It's how they get to the drug raid.
Like the plane thing.
Yes. Okay.
Yep.
So I want to talk about each of them because I think they're fascinating. The first is the Corvette off the bridge into the base jump, if you like. So this was a stunt that they put a huge amount of effort into. Now, obviously, Vin Diesel didn't actually do this stunt, but
Yeah,
someone
he's not
did.
Tom Cruise.
But someone did. And it's a really impressive stunt. Like, there's just no way around it. They did it for real, if you like. They had 18 cameras. They were shooting a variety of formats, so all in these sort of locked off camera positions, placed all around the bridge and on the ground. And they literally just jumped a Corvette off the bridge, and then the stuntman pulled the ripcord, leapt out of the car in midair and did the base jump. And I'm just like, this is awesome. Like, this is great. And when they actually do punch in for the close-ups of Vin Diesel, it looks really good. Like,
Yeah, there's not a
really
lot of
good.
There's no disconnection.
No, for 2002 in particular, I look at it and go, that's kind of a magic trick. That's a really good looking stunt, and that's a really good actor close up in the middle of it. So I just hats off to them for that, because I think that's awesome. The other thing is that was apparently a never before seen kind of stunt, a little bit like James Bond off the dam.
Yeah.
So they believe that they are the first production to have done that stunt, and I think they did it really well. The other one that's cool is there is this, when they get to the drug lord's place, if you like, the military cargo plane comes down. It hovers like, while at speed about
This
2 meters.
stunt would have hurt.
So yeah, well, they didn't actually do it.
I know, but
but look, it hovers like, between 2 meters off the runway without actually landing. They pull the ripcord on the parachutes, and then the characters fly out the back of it. Now, this would kill you, so obviously they didn't actually do this, but I found it interesting that it was based on a real military maneuver, which is called LAPES. And I've got it written down here. It's the so that's LAPES, low altitude parachute extraction system, which is a tactical airlift method that allows cargo aircraft to deliver heavy supplies without landing. Sorry, I'll say that again. LAPES is a tactical airlift method that allows cargo aircraft to deliver heavy supplies without landing. In the procedure, the aircraft flies extremely close to the ground and uses parachutes to extract and deposit the cargo directly into the drop zone, used in the Vietnam War predominantly. And I'm like, that's cool. Now, the fact that they decided to do it for people
People.
is hilarious and obviously wouldn't work, but just the fact that it was based kind of on a real military maneuver. And I actually think, again, like a lot of the stunts in the film, it looks great. And then the last one I got to talk about, I'm all about the bike jump. Can I just say, when I think XXX from 2002, I could do a whole podcast on how amazing I think that the jump over, I'm going to call it the barn. It's not a barn. It's some sort of, like
Yeah.
drug house thing, but it looks like a barn.
It's a
right?
warehouse.
Some sort of, Colombian warehouse thing. This bike motocross stunt is insane and it's awesome. And the thing literally blows up as he lands on it. Again, all done with, a stuntman, not with, Vin Diesel, but it's still to this day one of the most impressive stunts I have ever seen, and captured in a way that is also truly impressive. Again, with just a bunch of cameras all around the shed, if you like, and they just captured it with a variety of frame rates, and they just show it to you. And when you watch that dirt bike land on the down ramp of the shed as it's exploding, with these giant fireballs coming up, I just look at it and I just go, this is awesome action cinematography. Like, it just, like, right? You must have noticed
it's
that
good.
one.
It looks good. This movie actually looks good in general, for it, especially all of its action and its set pieces. Where the cringe again comes in, though, is him doing tricks as he does stuff. You're just like, wow, that's really unnecessary. Like, the most necessary one is when he kind of does like the side bike through the fence thing and all that sort of stuff. Like, yeah, he had to get through the fence. He had to do that. But like, there's other things where you're just like, wow, those tricks weren't necessary. It's like he's programmed to do it. The other thing is, like, the first part of this movie feels like it's written in a way that a bunch of this is going to call back. And it
Yes.
just doesn't. Like, you'd think that something from the diner would call back. You'd think that when he's at the party at the start before he's kidnapped, they ask him about this new trick he's working on. And you go, oh, you mean like the Superman barrel roll? And you'd think that that would come back, but it doesn't. And I actually really think there's a missed opportunity there. Like, this movie is designed for that sort of callback, that sort of kind of recall of its own film. Like, if he'd been in, they end up in Prague, is it? Or like,
Prague,
yeah. If he'd end up in Prague and he thought everything was over and he was in a diner or a cafe and he saw the recall of like, hey, it's not over because that person's not really who they say they are because of their shoes or whatever it is, right? Or if he did the Superman barrel roll when he went over the castle wall at the end. And like, there are moments where it seemed like there was prime positions for those things to come back, but they just didn't. I also have a question about our bad guys. They were just anarchists?
Yeah.
Okay,
Just
cool.
anarchists.
I just want to make sure I got it. They were just anarchists. They just doing it because they needed to bring down the system.
They were ex-military anarchists, and their whole goal was to return the world to the Stone Age. So,
yeah, I don't think they would have achieved that even if they were successful.
I mean, yeah, it was. I guess there's not a lot to them, but I do think Martin Chokas is awesome in the movie, and he does bad guy so well.
Yeah, he really does in this film. Like, that kind of a very particular kind of bad guy. He's not like your thinking man's bad guy. He's your insane, blow up the world, anarchist bad guy. Like, it fits, the grungy bad guy.
He does great. What I realized when I watched this film, now I've been watching him on screen since, I think, Fellowship of the Ring was the first time I saw him. I mean, look, I had
Yeah.
watched Xena, which technically is before that, but I don't remember much of Xena, to be honest. So I'm not going to say I remember him from Xena. But I realized only when watching this film, I didn't know what his native accent was. I realized that because I have only ever seen him do this variety of accents, usually as sort of Eastern
Yeah.
European bad guys. And obviously, his name, you look at it and you go, oh, he's Eastern European or something like that. But then I knew in the back of my head, he's actually a New Zealand actor. I'm like, does
Yeah.
he just sound Kiwi? And I literally went and found a behind the scenes video of, not behind the scenes, sorry, it was an interview. I just wanted to hear him talk,
Yeah.
basically. So I went to YouTube, I Googled his name, and I listened to him talk. Yep, just Kiwi. Just Kiwi.
Just wants his fashion chops.
I've been watching him though for years do all these different accents. I've seen him do American, I've seen him do English. I am used to hearing that sort of Eastern European voice come out of him because I'm most familiar with him doing this movie and doing Born Supremacy, where he plays one of the spies, So, and I was kind of just flabbergasted to realize he sounds very similar to myself in real life.
Do you want to hear something that may justify your confusion? He's a dual citizen. He is
right.
New Zealand and Hungarian.
I did know he had Hungarian heritage, but so yeah,
that's probably why that Eastern European stuff comes a bit easier and feels more natural coming from him, maybe.
Maybe, yeah, if he had family members or something who were speaking in that way. But I just thought it was interesting. So, but look, so there is one big action moment that, look, I don't know if I want to say it doesn't work in the movie, but it stands out. And I am, of course, talking about the avalanche sequence.
What do you mean? What do you mean? Of course he lived. Of course that went exactly as he planned it to.
Look, I talked a lot about the idea that this movie's got great action, and I don't want to actually be negative on the avalanche sequence because it's got some cool action in it too. However, a giant computer generated avalanche in a movie that has some pretty cool action that is mostly done for real with stuntmen stands out,
So many pixels.
It stands out. It's particularly in 2002. This was very much, I was watching it and I was just reminded of that sequence in Die Another Day where he surfs the wave in the Arctic on the, that sequence, when it's just this in a movie where there's a lot of, stuntmen and that kind of, I don't want to say grounded action, but more practical action that you just have a giant CG sequence, So
action your brain doesn't automatically reject.
Exactly. Can I just ask you though, having just watched this film, this is something where the internet will call me stupid, but I'm kind of okay with it because what was the purpose in him jumping out of the aircraft, snowboarding down, and then knocking out that communications tower? What does that give them?
The whole idea was that they couldn't launch a frontal assault on his base because the cameras would see them coming, and he was knocking out those cameras so the frontal assault would be a surprise.
Does this make any sense to you?
Not really, considering how quickly they figure out they're there and start shooting them.
Exactly, right?
It doesn't really seem to give them much of an advantage. But it is clearly stated in the film why he does it.
Well, so look, I set you up there in the sense that I know that that's why they stated he's doing it. It's just when you then see the frontal assault, you're like, I don't think the cameras matter. I just don't think the cameras matter. If you're going to show up with automatic rifles and vehicles and tanks and storm someone's compound, I'm not sure if it matters.
Go through the front gate.
And go through the front gate. I'm not sure if it matters that you knock out the cameras. Maybe it does.
They effectively walk into a kill pit. Like, they're just surrounded on all sides and just getting shot. It is mental that this is the plan. After, they had a really good plan, quotation marks, to knock out the communications tower. And they're like, and then we just go in.
The other thing is, where is the communications tower, and why is the
It's in a different country. It's in a different country.
Closed circuit TV system for a compound linked to a communications tower in a separate location? I don't understand, Ben.
Something you don't know, Jim, is that all communication towers in the world are actually set in the Himalayas. And that's where they're kept because it's really high, right? And clear lines of communication. So that's how that works. Obviously, it doesn't need to be physically connected to the CCTV system that it's using. Because that would be too easy.
I'm not going to say I care. Do you know what I mean? Like, I don't. I just...
As someone who works in an industry where CCTV is a norm, by the way, that thing's just a box in a cupboard somewhere. It's not a tower. Like, who are they communicating to?
That's what I'm wondering. I don't know. Like, Anyway, the whole thing...
We found the thread we can pull to pull this movie apart. It no longer makes sense as a whole.
The other thing that gets me in this one, and this is such a silly little thing, is they go through the effort of having, a James Bond-esque sequence where he's got his version of Q who gives him all of his gadgets. And one of the gadgets is a bandage that is a sticky bomb.
Yeah.
But why? It may as well just be a sticky bomb. He only uses it once in the movie and he sticks it to a bunch of motorcycles. I'm like... He's already in covert ops at that point. So it's just that weird thing where they're like...
clearly for that scene that got cut when he's walking into the castle and they frisk him and they go, "Don't worry, just Band-Aid. He can go through."
Right, yeah, sure. Because when he actually uses them, he's sneaking back into the compound with a variety of different weaponry. And then he grabs these bandages and slaps them on the bikes. And I'm like, why are there bandages? And now, sure, in the world of the film, maybe that's all he had and no problem. But also they go to the effort of setting up that this is not a real bandage. You would kind of expect that at some point, I don't know, one of the henchmen is going to get cut or something and they're going to be like, "Need bandage." And then he's going to like slap it on the dude's leg and then blow him up later.
That would have been awesome. That would have been so good. Like, that would have been my moment of the film. Like an hour in, dude cuts himself just playing with a knife like an idiot terrorist, right? And Xander's like, "I got you here." And he goes, "Oh, thank you very much." Final thing of the film, he corners him. He's got the bandage on his arm and Xander just goes, "Poof, poof." That would have been awesome.
We did have a heat-seeking rocket that takes out a dude's cigarette, because that's how that
also
works.
not how heat-seeking rockets work, not how heat works. Just like, is he cigarette? Well, make it work for me. Okay, round a corner, up a stair, through a little inner vent.
But again, this isn't criticism. This
is enjoyable.
This is enjoyable. Like all of this stuff. It's like there's a risk that people will be like, "Oh man, they're really going after the film." It's fun. It's fun. It's silly. It's no problem.
Also, someone who has family in construction and as mechanics, the turnaround on that car that he asks for is superhuman. And the things that are in it, it would be the heaviest car on the planet. It would barely move. It couldn't get up to speed. It'd have no acceleration. But yeah, look, this movie is fun. It's fun to pull apart. It's fun to talk about. It's fun to kind of understand what they were trying to do and where they succeeded in what they were trying to do. I have a quick question about the sequels to this film. I have not seen them, but I'm pretty sure he's not in the second one, and it is almost in no way related to the first one, except that it's a similar program.
Yeah, it's basically the second one. Yeah, there's obviously that period where he did it for Fast and Furious and he did it for XXX, these two series where Vin Diesel didn't return for the first sequel. And then obviously a little later on, maybe had a change of heart and realizing how important these two franchises perhaps were to his career. And then he does return for, later installments. So the second one has Ice Cube in it. It was directed by Lee Tamahori, who also directed Die Another Day, funnily enough, that Bond movie. And yeah, it does still have Samuel L. in it.
Yeah.
But the second one is, it's harder to enjoy even when you know what, the tone of the series is, if you like. So,
And
But
the
yes,
third one's literally called The Return of Xander Cage.
exactly. In the third one, he's back, and the third one is certainly stronger in my opinion, and more enjoyable. And weirdly, that was the only one you'd seen. Is that right?
I have, yeah, I think so. Like, again, I don't have like strong memories of it if I have seen it, but I do think I've seen it. Like, there's a bit where like they release all the X's and there's like lots and lots of them at the end or something. Am I remembering that correctly?
Honestly, I've only seen it once, so
Uh,
I can't recall it that well. I've seen this first one quite a few times, and I've even seen the second one 2 or 3 times. But that third one I've only seen once. I do remember liking it though.
cool.
Um, but yeah, it's this the second one. There's not much connective tissue. It's very similar in that sense to Too Fast, Too Furious. In terms of a sequel that doesn't have Vin Diesel, has very little connective tissue to the first one, and they sort of just do it again.
Now here's my hot take of the cast. I prefer Too Fast, Too Furious to Triple X.
Okay.
And I think it is, and here's my answer to it. I think it's the years of nostalgia that I've been able to build up around it.
Yeah,
I
right.
have friendship memories based on Too Fast, Too Furious. I have inside jokes with my friends based on that film. I have none of that with Triple X. I have none of that nostalgia pull. I look at the cringe and I look at the lack of plot in Too Fast, Too Furious, and I'm like, ha 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 ha, that's so dumb. That's awesome. I love this. And I look at it in Triple X because it's all kind of new to me. I'm just like, it hasn't had that time to marinate. Like films like that, like even like I call it the prequel syndrome, right? Star Wars prequels, when they first came out, they needed how many years to marinate for people to come back around on them and go, man, they're awesome. They're classics. I love them.
That's a crazy phenomenon. That thing we should talk about that at some
Yeah,
point. But
we'll get
like,
there for sure. But
yeah,
like, I think there's a minor version of that happening with films like this. If
yes,
you saw them when they came out and then you've kind of lived with them for all this time, when you go back to watch them, you're either more likely to enjoy them because you're building on top of the memories, or you're going to enjoy them just as much as you did the first time. And it's because they have that kind of, yeah, that nostalgia, that soup that kind
I
of
would
fits.
totally agree with you, and I would definitely say that's where a lot of my fun with the movie comes from. Is that 20-25 year nostalgia pull, as you say. So,
And I
yep,
think part of the genius is their lack of plot because you get to overlay your own memories and emotion on it. The movie actually doesn't tell you those things. So when you're sitting with it and you're like, I remember this action, I remember this action, the in-between bits don't matter.
no,
The story doesn't matter. What matters is the memories it allows you to create and the conversations it allows you to have. And I think that's what these two movies, the ones we've just done back to back, allow you to do. And as I said, I just have that more with Too Fast than I do with Triple X.
yeah, nice. Okay, well, I've definitely got it with Triple X as well. So.
And I'm sure there are tons of people out there who agree with you.
Yeah. Well, look, before we go any further, why don't you tell the good people of the interwebs where they can find us should they wish? And then I would like to hear what you have for me for next time.
Our name is Jim and Ben's Movie Adventures. You throw that into YouTube, Spotify, or iTunes, you're going to find us. When you do find us, there are these little things called likes and subscribes and comments. We'd love one of each from anyone who listens to this podcast. If you've been listening for a while, which we know there are a few of you, and you haven't like thrown out a comment to say, hey, you should watch this movie, or you haven't thrown out a subscribe on like Spotify or iTunes because you watch on YouTube, take 5 minutes out of your time. We'd really enjoy it. We're something we're trying to build coming into the new year. We have ourselves on Instagram and we have ourselves on TikTok. TikTok's a little bit shaky right now. We might not know how that goes in the future. But if you do want to find us on TikTok, it's Jim and Ben's Movie Adventures. And if you do want to find us on Instagram, it is Jim_and_Ben. Now, as a side note to this, when you do comment and subscribe, we do not care if you disagree with us. You do not care if we're wrong. We do not care about any of that sort of stuff. We're happy to engage with you in conversation. Okay, my movie. We were talking about it before, nostalgia hits. This is a nostalgia hit for me. We were talking about practicality. There is a massive, not single set, but there is a massive set that is used in this film that is very practically used. It is torn apart. It is built. It is covered in vines. It is trampled by CG animals. It is shot at by mystical hunters. It is
It is
transformed.
it is Jumanji from 1995.
It is Jumanji.
Hey, did I
So
get the year right? Let's check it. Is it 95?
it feels like it's 95. I haven't looked at the year.
It is. It's 1995. I should have just owned it and just been like, I know the year.
So for me, Jumanji kicked off a subgenre of films that kind of pepper throughout history since then. So I'd really love to start with it. It's also like between kind of Hook and Jumanji, it's kind of Robin Williams' two kind of kid-friendliest films throughout his journey as well. And look, a legend. I'll watch a Robin Williams film, even if I didn't 100% enjoy it the first time. I'll watch it again just for the nostalgia of seeing that man do what he does. So next week, we will be watching 1995's Jumanji.
Can't wait. Thanks very much, Ben. Have a great week.
Have a great week, everybody. Thank you very much.